Okay.
Oh, no,
Um, Hi, everyone. This is Matt Bowes from NeWest Press. We're an independent publisher located in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And with me today is Isabel Yang, one of our employees. How are you today, Isabel?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So we are stealthily testing this platform for maybe some readings in the future. So let us know if this works on your end. But I think it's doing okay. You're kind of stuttering a bit. Am I stuttering?
No, I can hear you just fine.
So video's coming through okay? Okay, cool. All right, well, yeah, this could be a way to do it. Okay, great. Well, if you want to take off, that's fine by me, Isabel. We'll see you.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so that was Isabel. They've worked at NeWest for going on a year now. But today we're going to be taking a look at Garry Ryan's book, Glycerine, which is one of his many books in the Detective Lane mystery series. So this one came out in 2014. It's, I believe it's one of the first I ever worked on. And it's a mystery somewhat inspired by the Weibo Ludwig case, which 90s kids will remember this, was a man who was blowing up pipelines in Alberta as a political protest. So, yeah, it's interesting. Let's take a look. So here's the cover by Natalie Olson, as per usual. Great pipeline shot. In this explosive news story, Calgary's Detective Lane must stop a religious fundamentalist bomber. With the traumatic events of Fox behind him, Detective Lane has been promoted to the head of the Calgary Major Crimes Unit, a position that brings new responsibilities as well as a new partner in the form of headstrong-looking rookie Nigel Lee. Lane and Lee's first case, an investigation into the death of a migrant worker, points them in the direction of John A. Jones, the leader of a fractured community in northern Alberta, who has been suspected of bombing oil and gas pipelines. With the Calgary stampede just days away and anti-Muslim tension mounting in town in the wake of an honor killing of a young girl, Lane and Lee must foil a potential terror attack. And Drury Wayne Gunn, right here, says, Garry Ryan is one of our finest novelists in any genre. That's on his Mystery Review blog, reviewing the evidence. I'm in a different part of my house today, and I thought the lighting might be better here, so let me know if you agree. But yeah, I'm just going to read the beginning. The Lane novels have a sort of loose chronology, but I think you can pick them up, the early ones anyway, and kind of enjoy the story as it is, or you can start from the beginning and get the whole thing. There's a lot of sort of family drama that comes up over the course of the Lane books. So yeah, but each individual mystery is self-contained, and you can get enjoyment out of that. We made a collection of the first 3 Detective Lanes and then the next 3 Detective Lanes. They're called the Detective Lane Case Books, and you can pick them up at your favorite ebook retailer. But here's a taste of Glycerine for you. Monday, July 5th. Chapter 1. Father and brother of victim charged in killing. Shafiq Abdullah, father of 16-year-old Shafina Abdullah, and Mohammed Abdullah, Shafina's 18-year-old brother, had been charged with her murder. The body of the 16-year-old female was discovered in her home on Saturday night. EMS was unable to revive the girl when they arrived at the Abdullah home in response to a 911 call. Shafina was a grade 11 student at Sir John A. Macdonald High School. Story continues, page B3. So there's often kind of newspaper-style notes in these books, so these come up all the time. Thursday, July 8th, Chapter 2. We want you to work with Nigel Lee, Harper said. Lane studied Deputy Chief Cameron Harper before answering. Cam's height and athletic physique filled the office. Behind his black mustache, now sprinkled with gray, his round face was a mask. Chief Jim Simpson's more delicate features were similarly blank. Lane looked down at the round table in Harper's office, and then at the triangle formed by the chairs they sat in. His eyes focused on the mochaccino in the white paper cup. Lane's a big foodie, so he likes mochaccinos and can kind of smell the different aspects of food while eating it. I've worked on a lot of these books, so I'm fairly familiar with Lane's sort of character. He could smell the chocolate. Now it all makes sense. He looked at Harper and Simpson again and sensed their discomfort. Think about it. Simpson wore his uniform jacket with all the necessary braid. His blonde hair was trimmed short. For a day. Harper lifted his coffee with hands that made the cup look like a child's. We were hoping to hang on to Detective Saliba, Simpson studied Lane's face. The RCMP wouldn't listen to us. They said that her particular skill set was required elsewhere. But we understand why she moved down east to get a fresh start. Harper put his cup down, sat back, and squirmed in his dress uniform. And it's important that we continue the process of passing on your skills, your techniques to a younger detective. Simpson looked sideways at Lane. Lane was surprised at his annoyance with their use of the word we and thought, get to the point. Both of you are so worried about following the rules that you've handcuffed yourselves. Who is Nigel Lee and what are you holding back? He raised the mochaccino, took a sip, smiled. Don't think that you can buy me with one good cup of coffee. Simpson blinked and smiled. He stood up, loosened his tie, took off his uniform jacket, and hung it on the back of his chair. Lane spotted the darker blue patches under Simpson's arms. Harper stood up, took off his jacket, and rolled up his sleeves. Lee is a colossal pain in the ass. And a brilliant one. He speaks English, Spanish, and Mandarin. Simpson sat down again and reached for his coffee. He used his left hand to hold back his tie as he sipped. So which is it? Is he brilliant or a pain in the ass? Lane looked at the liver spots on the back of his hands. Actually, he's both, Simpson smiled as he gauged Lane's reaction. Before Lane could ask his next question, his phone rang. He raised his hand and pulled the phone from his jacket pocket and read the name on the display. He looked at the men in front of him. It's Lori. I have to take this. He pressed a button. Hello? Tell those two bigwigs that we need you, she said. 20 minutes later, Lane pulled up behind the forensic crime scene unit on a residential street. The unit was a white box with ribbon-like blue stripes and a blue and white cab up front. Its nickname was Big Mac. It was parked out front of a new home being built on an old lot in Hillhurst, one of the more established districts near the river and on the edge of downtown Calgary. Lane got out of his Chev and walked towards the house. Stepping over a chunk of 2x6 with nails sticking out of its splintered end, he looked up at the house with its fresh, gray coat of stucco. It was 2 stories high with a 2-car garage around back. A man in a white crime scene bunny suit stepped out of the front door. You're okay to enter the main level, and the steps into the basement are okay. I'm working on the top level next. He moved aside so the detective could enter. Lane climbed the front stairs and walked inside where his footsteps echoed on the unfinished floors and uninsulated walls. He followed the familiar stink of rotting meat to the basement door and started downstairs. The steps swayed. They were suspended about a foot from the gravel floor. The wood creaked as he stopped on the bottom step. The concrete walls glowed from hurricane lamps focused on a spot near the center of the floor. A woman in a bunny suit knelt, clearing away gravel with a brush. An ever-expanding section of blue tarp was visible. A man in a matching bunny suit stood behind the woman, videotaping the process. The kneeling investigator pulled out the tarp to lift away more of the gravel. A bloody hand and forearm came into view, and the stink of rotting meat intensified. The investigator with the camera stopped, turned, and looked at Lane. The detective met the eyes of the camera operator and recognized him. Lane nodded. Colin. Dr. Colin Weaver, the head of the forensic crime scene unit, was nicknamed Fiber. Despite that, he was completely unaware of the moniker and equally unaware of the effect that his Hollywood face had on women who met him for the first time. We're just getting started. You're welcome to watch or wait upstairs. Lane turned and went back to the main floor. He turned left into the kitchen and saw 2 men sitting on the back step. One had his head shaved so it shone. He wore a red and black checked work shirt and khaki bib overalls. He stared into the backyard and sipped from a stainless steel thermos. The other, with his back to Lane, had short black hair and wore a blue sport coat. He talked with his hands, each of which held a paper coffee cup. Lane turned the doorknob. Do it quietly and listen, he thought as he opened the back door. So you're saying that the body had to have been buried last night because you just finished leveling the gravel yesterday afternoon? The young man with the coffee cups asked. The man in work clothes turned to look at Lane. There were lines across his forehead, airy, despite the fact that he looked about 18. Detective Lane. The other man turned, stood, and offered a cup to Lane. Lane asked, Who are you? Nigel Lee. He continued to hold the cup in front of Lane. Good or not. Laurie told me what you liked. Don't worry, it's still hot. Lane took the cup, held close to his nose, smelled the chocolate, and took a sip. Does everyone think they can get on my good side by buying me a mochaccino? He took another sip. They're probably right. She said it would be a good icebreaker, Nigel said. Lane took Nigel's round face, brown eyes. Lane offered his hand. Nigel took it with a smile. He looks relieved, Lane thought. Nigel glanced at the man in work clothes. This is Jim. He discovered the body. Lane looked at Jim, who stood up and offered his hand. He says he finished up work at around 6 o'clock last night. He came to check on the job before the concrete was. He noticed. Lane thought, however you react, it will probably make or break your relationship with Nigel. He put his hand on Nigel's shoulder. They also look. Then turned his attention to Jim. Stared into the backyard. Lane sat down on the side for Jim to do. Nigel, the older detective and the witness. Lane glanced up at Nigel, then looked. He saw that the garage door was open. There was darkness behind the open door. Do you know who it is? Jim's eyes turned away from the garage. Not yet, Lane said. Jim nodded, looked at Lane, and sat down next to him. I finished up leveling off the basement last night. This morning I could tell that someone had been there afterward. I went to level the floor again. That's when my rag hooked on an eye at the corner of the tarp. There was that smell. It's been so hot lately, and it was hot in there yesterday. Nigel opened his mouth. Lane silenced him with a glance, a slight shake of the head, and a smile. I saw his face. His eyes were wide open. Jim focused on Lane. He's from Mexico, right? At this moment, you know more than I do, Lane said. Jim nodded and turned back to staring at the shadow behind the open garage door. Mexican. Some of the Latino guys come up here to work construction. Lane glanced at Nigel, who appeared to be intently studying the conversation. When I lifted the tarp, I caught a glimpse of his face. His mouth was open, so were his eyes. I dropped the tarp and went back upstairs, called 911 from my cell phone. Jim turned to Lane. From the look on his face, he died in agony. Okay, so that is a taster of Garry Ryan's Glycerin, one of the many books in the Detective Lane mystery series. So if you're interested in reading this book, anywhere you want to buy an ebook, it should be available. So just type it into your ebook device and you should be able to find it pretty easily. But if you're looking for a print edition, we are not currently selling them out of our office. You can see I'm in my house. So what we're doing is directing people to allitup.ca, which is the Literary Press Group's website for distribution. So yeah, allitup.ca, you can get this and the other 9 books in the Lane mystery series if you like. Or like I said, if you're interested in tasting the first 3, there's a special book called the Detective Lane Casebook, which you could find it on your ebook reader. It's got the first 3 and can get you up to speed on the series really quickly. So thanks again to Isabel for coming on the stream today. And thanks to you for listening to me read another book. We will see you tomorrow with another reading.